What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Last night, Baltimore Ravens running back Derrick Henry racked up the third highest rushing yard total in a single game this season when he scampered for 216 yards against the Green Bay Packers on Saturday night, December 27th. In this video, I'll explain how this standout performance was a numerical riddle connected to the death of YouTuber and tech influencer Lamar Wilson, whose cause of death was revealed just last week. Derrick Henry's middle name is LAMARR. Now, on Saturday afternoon, just hours before last night's game, I made this post explaining how the death of Lamar Wilson was synced to Henry's teammate, Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, as this Lamar throws a Wilson football for a living. The Wilson Sports Apparel Company makes the official NFL football. Well, it just so happens that in one of my posts on this story, 216 was one of the numbers I focused on. For starters, simply look at the Gematria of the name Lamar Wilson. Gematria is the ancient number lettering system. And in virtually every video I do, I say that Latin is the most significant cipher. Well, here, the name Lamar Wilson equals 1,321, which is a prime number, the 216th prime number. The Ravens' Lamar Jackson was born 2 months and 16 days after the birthday of Lamar Wilson. The Baltimore Ravens are named after a poem that was written by legendary author Edgar Allan Poe. Of course, the poem was called The Raven. Edgar Allan Poe was born 216 years ago. Now, in the alphabetic order of Gematria, which is probably the simplest cipher to understand, here we simply number the alphabetic order 1 through 26. A is 1, B is 2, all the way through Z as 26. Well, in this cipher, the phrase YouTube influencer equals 216. And if you instead use capital letters, the website YouTube also equals 216. And in other methods of Gematria, notice how the word tech equals 216 in multiple ciphers. Lamar Wilson, known as a tech influencer. Now, the number 216 is one I discuss quite often on this channel. A big reason is that the moon's equatorial diameter is 2,160 miles across. Well, Derrick Henry, the man who rushed for 216 yards last night, was born 216 sidereal months, or lunar orbits, after Lamar Wilson. A sidereal month measures the time it takes for the moon to complete one circuit around the Earth in relation to the stars. But I think the biggest reason 216 is so important is because it's the product of 6 times 6 times 6, which connects it to the number of the beast. Derrick Henry achieved his 216 yards on a whopping 36 carries, which was the most in an NFL game by any player in almost 2 full years. And again, 666, the 36th triangular number, made up of 3 sixes. Now look at the Gematria of Derrick Henry in standard Latin and in reduction. Number of the beast and Derrick Henry both equal 1,074, 724, and 75. This is about as perfect of a match as you're going to get in Gematria. Derrick Henry with Number of the Beast. And again, his middle name is Lamar, whereas his Baltimore Ravens teammate, the quarterback, is also named Lamar. Now, Lamar Jackson did not play in last night's football game as he's nursing an injury. He was instead replaced by this guy, Tyler Huntley. And we're going to touch on his numerology in this video as well. So shout out to everybody for coming back. Sorry if I sound a little bit under the weather as I'm dealing with a bit of a head cold from this holiday season, as I'm sure many of you are experiencing as well. Another note is that last night was the Baltimore Ravens' 276th win in franchise history. The name Derrick Lamar Henry equals 276 in the reverse alphabetic order. And I guess you could say maybe this number looks a little bit like 216, right? The number of rushing yards he had. So in this video, we're going to dissect the numerology of the death of Lamar Wilson, how it all syncs up with the Baltimore Ravens. But another thing we're going to look at is how this all connects to YouTube. As YouTube, the site that you're probably watching this video on, is essentially what gave birth to Lamar Wilson's fame. And last year, I made a video on the death of former YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki. Susan died on August 9th last year, and I made a post about that. You can find the video I made on her passing linked down below in the description. Well, earlier in the year, Susan's son, Marco Troper, died at the age of just 19. And then his mom passed away later that same year. So again, check the description for more on that, as that's going to be a point of focus in this video, is the numerology of YouTube, how it connects to this story. Back in the year 2018, there was a mass shooting reported at the headquarters of YouTube, carried out by a Persian woman named Nasim Agdam. And this was a very bizarre story, of course. But the numerology of this story is more fascinating than anything. And we're going to talk about this as well, because this shooting was all synced up with Yale University and its Skull and Bones Society, which turned 322 years old in 2023. And the Skull and Bones Code is very prevalent in the death of Lamar Wilson, who was 48 years old. Not only was he 48 years old, YouTube equals 480, influencer 408. They say he died from suffocation, taking his own life. That also equals 48. Well, not only was he 48, but he also passed away exactly 48 weeks before his next birthday. And it was also 48 days before the birthday of Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Again, Lamar Jackson is connected to this story as he throws a Wilson football for a living. And it's very common to see the name Wilson associated with riddles in the National Football League. Consider, for instance, that we had a president named Ronald Wilson Reagan, and now we have this quarterback, Baker Mayfield, whose middle name is Reagan. And yeah, this is something for a whole other video. Let's stay focused here today. Now, the name Lamar Jackson equals 118 in the standard alphabetic order. Derrick Henry was born on a date with numerology. I think he was born in 1994. He was born on a date with numerology of 118. The phrase, "quoth the raven nevermore," equals 118 in reduction. And check out how old Lamar Wilson was for the YouTube shooting. Exactly 1,108 weeks old. That's interesting because the name of the shooter Nassim Agdam sums to 1108 with square numbers. This was called a headquarters shooting. When the first video was uploaded to YouTube back in 2005, it was during Brown lunation number 1018. Every new moon since the year 1923 has been numbered. And YouTube went live during lunation 1018. We'll be talking a lot about the moon in this video. Well, now we get the death of a man named Wilson, whose cause of death was listed as asphyxia and suffocation, both of which equal 118. The words death and homicide both equal 118. And if you measure the days of death from Marco Troper, the YouTube CEO's son, to his death, it was the 118th prime number of days, 647, which also happens to be the gematria of Susan Wojcicki. Now, Lamar Wilson is freakishly connected to YouTube. And of course, this didn't make any sense to me until the game played out last night as it did. But check this out. When Wojcicki died last year, she was exactly 2,927 weeks old. This is the 423rd prime number. When YouTube was launched in 2005, or founded, I should say, Lamar Jackson was exactly 423 weeks old. And then the website went live on April 23rd, or 423. In fact, Lamar Wilson was 40 years, 23 weeks old for the shooting at its headquarters. But this is also a number connected to the moon, which equals 423 in standard English gematria. Standard is simply the current incarnation of Latin gematria, using the current 26-letter alphabet. The width of the moon, 2,160 miles, also equals 423, matching the moon. So Lamar Wilson, probably not the first time I'll make that mistake. His death occurred in November, so over a month ago. It wasn't announced until earlier this month, and then his cause of death was revealed last week. However, it just so happened that I didn't pick up on this story until yesterday, the same date of this game. So Wilson died on the 21st of November, which is a date that can be written as 2111 on the calendar. 2111 is the 318th prime number. And notice how this headline said he's genuinely at peace. This is apparently what he said in his last post. Now, by the way, in Lamar Wilson's last social media post, he said it was his 48th birthday and he had just lost 48 pounds. So I don't know, maybe he was into numbers or maybe it's a coincidence, but this phrase, he's genuinely at peace, equals 318. And notice how he died 318 days after Lamar Jackson's birthday. Susan Wojcicki, dead 3 months, 18 days after YouTube's first video date. His death was also 10 months, 14 days after Jackson's birthday, and that's the gematria Lamar Wilson shares with the word suicide. But the number 14 seems to connect everybody involved with this story as well. Remember, the word dead equals 14, as does the word end. Lamar Jackson was born 10,414 days after Susan Wojcicki, whose son died 1,414 weeks later, exactly. Now, Lamar Wilson is dead 140 days after Susan's birthday. YouTube was founded on the 14th day of the month, which also had numerology of 14. And then when the first video went live on the site, it was another date with 14 numerology. Wojcicki became the company's CEO in the year 14 on a date with 14 numerology. And when she stepped down from her position in 2023, it was on another date with 14 numerology. The following year, her son Marco died on another date with 14 numerology. And now last month, Lamar Wilson passes away on, you guessed it, a date with 14 numerology. This story is also synced up to the author of The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe. Now, I mentioned earlier, Edgar Allan Poe would be 216 years old if he had some sort of superhuman potion. But there's a lot more numbers that connect him here. And I want to start with his birthday, January 19th, which is the date written 119. Lamar Jackson was replaced last night by quarterback Tyler Huntley, who led the Ravens to a victory. Well, check out how old Huntley was for the game. 10,190 days old, which reflects Poe's birthday. Lamar Jackson was exactly 19 years and 11 weeks older than Lamar Wilson. This is also 7,017 days, and 7 times 17 is 119. Ritual human sacrifice is a 911. Blood sacrifice an upside down 119. This using satanic gematria, which is a cipher specially constructed around the number of the beast. They say he committed suicide, which equals 119. And his last name, Wilson, equals 1109. Now, intriguingly, when I made my video on the death of Susan Wojcicki, I pointed out how it was all connected to the Twin Towers, right? I pointed out that this was a 9/11 riddle. Lamar Wilson was born 9 years, 110 days after Susan Wojcicki. She represents the divine feminine in industry. Divine feminine equals 9/11. Wojcicki was the CEO of YouTube for 9 years, 11 days. Well, Wilson died 11 years, 9 months after she became CEO. And 91 months and 19 days after the shooting at their headquarters. YouTube was founded during Brownlow Nation 1016. And the company was 1016 weeks old when Susan passed away. Her name has a 116. The word tech equals 116. So does Tech Lifestyle Entertainer, which was Lamar Wilson's nickname. Asphyxia and suffocation, his cause of death, 116. Once again, we see the 9/11 code very prevalent here. You also have to appreciate that Lamar Wilson was born 2,025 months after Edgar Allan Poe, which of course now reflects the year he passed away. Now, if you made it this far into the video, I'm going to ask you to stay to the end because I'm going to talk about how my own numbers connect to this story. And it makes a bit of sense, right? Because here we got a guy named Derrick Henry. My name is Derrick, albeit spelled a little differently. And this game was played in the state of Wisconsin, which is the state I was born in and have lived in virtually my entire life. And whenever we're talking about numerology, it's important to understand that this is a study of not just conspiracy, but also the world at large. I think anyone who's taken an honest amount of time and turned these numbers in on themselves, they've discovered that they too are connected to this organic matrix. And I think what I have at the end of this video will show you that there is indeed something more to what's going on. Was the 216-yard game rigged? Was it scripted by NFL's overlords? By the Las Vegas gambling kingpins? Or is this manifestation of organic numerology? Again, I'm not the judge of that. I just try to give people as much information as I can. And, when it comes to professional sports, I certainly have my suspicions. But again, y'all got to make the call for yourself. All right, so next up, I want to talk about the Skull and Bones Code. And we start with how old Susan Wojcicki would have been when Lamar Wilson died last month. She would have been exactly 57 years and 20 weeks old. That stands out because Lamar Wilson was 572 lunar phases old when her son died. 572 is the Latin value of skull and bones. If you instead use an ampersand, you get the same three digits, 527. In 2023, Yale turned 322 years old. This happened exactly 5 years and 27 weeks after the YouTube shooting. Now, bank this measurement. We're going to talk about this again because it was also 2016 days and 66 months and 6 days. So trust me when I say this shooting is all synced up. Just look at the lunation number for Yale's Skull and Bones anniversary. This happened during lunation number 1246. Well, look at what time the YouTube headquarters shooting happened. It began at 12:46 p.m. Lamar Wilson was born 8,805 weeks after Edgar Allan Poe also, to go along with the 2025 we looked at earlier. 885 is skull and crossbones in Latin. So let's get into this 223 and 322 connection. We touched on this a little bit earlier because 223 is the 48th prime number, and that was Wilson's age at death. Dead 48 weeks before his birthday and 48 days before Lamar's. Yale University and Skull and Bones also both connect to the 48. Wilson died 2 months and 23 days before the death date of Susan Wojcicki's son, who died 223 days after her birthday. And he even died on the date leaving 322 days in a leap year. Now, Lamar Wilson has died 32 weeks and 2 days before Susan Wojcicki's birthday and 322 days before Yale's anniversary, October 9th. Speaking of that anniversary, October 9th, that date can be written as 1009. And Lamar Wilson died 1,009 days after Susan stepped down as CEO. Edgar Allan Poe also has a connection to the number 223 through his lunation number, negative 1409, the 223rd prime, Skull and Bones 149. But here's where it all comes together perfectly. Measuring from Yale's 322nd anniversary to the death of Lamar Wilson was 110 weeks and 5 days with the end date included. This represents the number 115, and in standard gematria, skull and crossbones equals 1105, while in reduction, skull and bones society equals 115. Lamar Wilson was born exactly 115 lunar phases after Susan Wojcicki. Their deaths were separated by 1 year, 105 days, which is also exactly 1 year and 15 weeks. Wilson's death was a span of 10 months and 15 days after the birthday of Lamar Jackson. Susan's son died 115 days after Wilson's birthday, which also falls 115 days before YouTube's anniversary. The word killing has double gematria of 115. And what does the raven say at the end of every stanza? Nevermore, which equals 115 in ordinal. Nevermore is also 128 in reverse, which is Lamar Wilson's birth numerology. The word brotherhood also 128. Lamar Wilson was born on the 295th day of the year. 295 is the ordinal gematria of the numbers 223 and 322. Skull and Bone Society is also 295. This was found in his lunar age for the 9/11 attacks. But this goes even further. If you include the end date, Wilson was exactly 577 months old when he died. That's the 106th prime number, which is the reduction value of the numbers 223 and 322. Yale equals 16 in that same cipher. Lamar was born 1 week and 6 days after Yale's anniversary. Also 106 days before the date Susan became YouTube's CEO. She died 1,006 weeks after the site went live. That happened 106 days after Lamar Jackson's birthday. And now Lamar Wilson, dead of asphyxia and suffocation, which equals 106. Big Tech and Tech both also have this 106. And this is what everyone's remembering him as, right? The tech influencer. Unboxing, reviewing tech on YouTube. These two are further connected as Lamar Wilson, who has a life lesson number of 16, also has gematria of 56. Birth numerology of 56 to go with his name. Wojcicki died at 56 years of age. And her cause of death, non-small cell lung carcinoma, equals the 56th prime number, which also matches Order of the Skull and Bones, or Skull and Crossbones. So earlier I pointed out how his death fell 1,009 days after Susan left YouTube. This is the 169th prime number, like brotherhood. But also in reverse, his name, Lamar Wilson, equals 169. Lamar Jackson's full name sums to 169 in multiple ciphers. The number 169 is also a bit special, as this is a square number. 13 times 13 gives us this product 169. Lamar Wilson died 1 year, 3 months, 13 days after Susan Wojcicki. Asphyxia, 103. He was born 13 days after Yale's anniversary. That school is home to Skull and Bones, which equals 130 like human sacrifice. Wojcicki even died exactly 130 lunar phases after becoming CEO. The name of the YouTube shooter and her home nation both connect to 13 as well. The number 13 is the only number in the alphabetic order with gematria of 99. And this is an incredibly important number to the United States of America, with its 13 stripes on the flag, a nation that began with 13 colonies. The United States of America got its name on September 9th, or 9/9, matching its 99 reduction gematria, like mathematics of the circle. In fact, both circle and America equal 99 with capital letters. The name LAMARR equals 99 in the reverse alphabetic order. And if you measure from the first Great American Total Solar Eclipse to his death, it was exactly 99 months later. Susan Wojcicki has birth numerology of 99. Her son's name was Marco, which is 99. But one more interesting thought before I get to the next part of this. So 13 is 99, right? This makes me think of the number 1399. And consider how the father of America is named George Washington. And his name equals 1399, right? So it's perfect for America, the land of the number 13. Well, George Washington was born on the date February 22nd. And that's perfect because 1399 is the 222nd prime number. The word eclipse equals 222. The phrase skull and bones 2022. Asphyxia and suffocation 2220. That was the cause of death for the tech lifestyle entertainer, which equals 2220. Susan Wojcicki died on the 222nd day of a leap year. Lamar's death was also 3,014 days after the Great American Eclipse. Eclipse and circles equal 314, the first three digits of pi. 314 is also the ordinal gematria of 223 and 322, the first two numbers with this gematria. Because even though I call this the skull and bones code, it's really the code of the circle. The mathematics of the circle is embedded brilliantly into the English language, and the Skull and Bones Society simply paid tribute to that code in their own numerology. So I got a few more notes in my posts. Of course, the posts are always linked below in the description of this video. I encourage you to check it out because there are some more intriguing alignments. But to wrap this up, let's talk about the number 666 once again, and how this all brings us back full circle to the number 216, which we kicked the video off with. Raven author Edgar Allan Poe has gematria of 666 in Sumerian. But that's not the only intriguing method I want to talk about. Because in Latin gematria, it also equals 294. And when you use the alphabetic order, 603 score and 6 with the ampersand equals 294. So does 666. Another 294. For the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson wears number 8, which equals 294. When Lamar Wilson's cause of death was revealed last week, the Baltimore Ravens were sitting at 275 wins in their franchise's history. That's the ordinal gematria of the cardinal spelling of 666. The four beasts of Revelation, the book that reveals the number of the beast, are described in verse 47, which is the ordinal value of beast. It was a man named John that wrote the book of Revelation. John and Revelation, both 47. Lamar Wilson died a span of 470 days after Susan Wojcicki. And his cause of death, suicide, 47. His death was also exactly 1,074 weeks after YouTube went live online. And that's pretty interesting, right? Because number of the beast, 1,074 and 174, like Baltimore Ravens. And remember, this is the gematria that Derrick Henry shared. 1,074. The guy who had an excellent game in Green Bay. So once again, the moon, 2,160 miles across at its equator. The 2018 YouTube shooting was 66 months and 6 days, or 2,016 days, before Yale's 322nd anniversary. 6 times 6 times 6 equals 216. YouTube shooting is 216, just like YouTube influencer and YouTube. Mathematics of the circle, both 666 and 216 ordinal. Remember, if you add up all of the base ciphers, Skull and Bones' nickname, Brotherhood of Death, equals 666. Susan Wojcicki became YouTube's CEO 216 days after her birthday and 216 weeks before the YouTube shooting. And then she stepped down as CEO on the date February 16th, or 216. She was the CEO for 216 months. And she died 216 days after Lamar Jackson's birthday, which is 2 months and 16 days after Lamar Wilson's birthday. Lamar Wilson, the 216th prime. And just a reminder, guys, I made that post before Derrick Henry ran for 216 yards. I believe that's the third highest total in the NFL this season, matching James Cook, which, oh, that's pretty interesting, actually. Maybe I'll come back to James Cook. I also noticed a distinct revelation code in this story. The last verse of Revelation is the 331st prime number. Patmos, last, second coming, and God's Son, all 331. Wilson died 33 weeks, 1 day after the anniversary of the YouTube shooting. He was 330 months, 1 day old when the site went live. Wojcicki died 331 weeks after the shooting and 331 months after Lamar Jackson was born. And, you know, this is kind of out there. I don't really like talking about this because it's a little bit scattered, but 331 is the 67th prime number. The name Susan Wojcicki equals 67, and she died exactly 67 weeks before Lamar Wilson. '67 is the 19th prime number. Lamar Wilson born on a date with 109 and 19 numerology. His birthday is 109 days after Wojcicki's. Her name equals 190 ordinal, whereas YouTube equals 109. Susan's son passed away exactly 19 years after YouTube was founded, and 10 years, 9 days after his mom became the CEO. The woman who shot up the headquarters at YouTube was born exactly 10 years and 9 months after Wojcicki. 19 is an important number to the kill code. Kill equals 19 and 244, whereas 19 equals 244. Check out the name Jackson, right? Lamar Jackson, the quarterback of the Ravens, 19-244. Lamar Wilson died 2 years and 44 days after Yale's special anniversary. And of course, 244 connects back to the number 666 through the digits of pi. I also talked a lot about the number 232 in this post, and I'm not going to talk about all of this right now. You can go over these alignments yourself. But his cause of death, asphyxia and suffocation, gives us this number 232, right? Dead 20 years, 30 weeks, 2 days after YouTube's first video. 232 days after the anniversary of the YouTube shooting, which was 23 weeks and 2 days after his birthday. Susan died 2,320 days after that shooting. In Latin, Satan equals 232. Satan, Lucifer, the number of the beast. It all comes together pretty well. Well, Lamar Jackson, once again, he did not play quarterback last night. That honor went to a man named Tyler Isaiah Huntley, whose name also equals 232. Now, what's interesting about Tyler Huntley is the number of days from his birthday to Lamar Jackson's. First of all, notice how they were born 12 months and 27 days apart. Well, 12/27 was the date of last night's game between the Ravens and Packers. This same duration is also 56 weeks. In reduction, Lamar Wilson is 56, and he was born on a date with 56 numerology. But if you include the end date, these two Ravens quarterbacks were also born 393 days apart. And when you look at Lamar Jackson's full name in reverse, without the junior, you get a 393. All right, so for the last part of this video, I'm going to talk about the organic matrix, which is a term we decoders generally use for events that are synchronistically connected to our own personal lives through the numbers. Events that we know for a fact were not staged, were not rigged, and whatnot. And, you know, I believe that anybody can basically get in front of these patterns ahead of time with enough diligence and understanding about how numbers connect with one another. Excuse me. And, you know, I spend a lot of time doing this, so it's not uncommon for me to pick up on fascinating numerical connections before they manifest. You need to look no further than just a couple weeks ago, where in Superstream 98, I talked about Phillip Rivers and the golden ratio, 1618. And then Phillip Rivers' first game back ended with a score of 16-18. It's basically the same thing here, right? We talk about the number 216 and how important it is to this news story with Lamar. And then a guy named Derrick Lamar Henry runs for 216 yards. Anyway, the fact that I caught on this particular synchronicity is pretty interesting, right? Because, again, my name is Derrick, just like the running back Derrick Henry. And this game was played in Wisconsin, which is where I live. Well, check this out. Derrick Henry was born during Brown lunation number 878. The Brown lunation number, right? The number of the moon. Well, here, this is my full legal name. Derrick Michael J. Takori. And it sums to 878 in standard English Gematria. So Henry was born during 878, but I was born during lunation 772. And my common name, Derrick Tikori, is 772. I was born exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 2 weeks after Lamar Wilson. But of course, there's more, right? My full name also equals 130. We talked a little bit about the number 13 in this decode. Well, 103 is also the gematria of Derrick Lamar Henry Jr. And Derrick Lamar Henry Jr. was born exactly 103 months after I was. Furthermore, that's also 8 years and 7 months. And 87 connected to 666. Number of the beast. So how weird is that? Number of the beast, 77. 1074724, like Derrick Henry. And look at my age for last night's game. Derrick Henry ran for 216 yards and 4 scores in this game. And I was 2,116 weeks and 4 days old. How weird is that? And again, this is exactly what I think people realize when they start taking a more critical eye to numerology, is that all of us are connected in some way or another to what's going on. And my eyes were a little bit more focused on this story and this synchronicity than most others. And somehow it all came together, connected to me, I guess you could say. Another quick note about my age is this 426, 40 years, 206 days old. And here we're talking about Yale, right? Yale is that 426. And what else? I think this was 42 weeks and 6 days before someone's birthday. Yeah, okay, so last night's game was 42 weeks and 6 days before Lamar Wilson's birthday, the tech influencer. So again, this rabbit hole runs deep, right? It's no different than studying the cosmos. It just goes on and on and on forever. It's like we will always discover things that are connected to one another, no matter how deep we continue to look. All right, so that will do it for this video. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Once again, related posts and videos linked down in the description below. Do feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff on YouTube. And if you really enjoy the work or want more decoding power for yourself, become a member of Gematrinator.com. For a small monthly fee, you get full access to the website. It'll save all your settings, all your search histories. And next month, we'll be coming out with some new software to help take decoding to the next level. So real excited about that. But for now, peace, love, God bless. And we'll talk to you next time. See ya.